It is something that I think is sometimes taken for granted, perhaps not even necessarily understood in the general public with regard to how important this, not only what this legacy is, but TIM's role in it. And perhaps I have a special feeling for it and am especially pleased to be here tonight as governor to speak about it, because it's my first opportunity in that role to speak with you, perhaps speak to some of the TIM alumni, and to speak with those who support TIM. Yes, we're in the midst of some very difficult times financially here in the state. And as such, we're going to have to make some choices, some difficult choices and decisions with regard to where our support will go. What, in fact, are the core services that are necessary and required for us to be able to meet the obligations and responsibilities we have, to see to it that we have an economy that is going to be supported in a way that will lead not just to recovery at the moment, but prosperity for the future. And I can think of no institutional framework, no institutional residence at the university more suited to that than the Travel Industry Management School. I first came to the university in 1959. For you younger people in the audience, that was the last century. And I remember very, very clearly the foundation of this hotel complex with Henry Kaiser. It was the Kaiser Hawaiian Village, not Hilton. The Kaiser Hawaiian Village, his conception. There were perhaps, I don't know, a dozen, 2 dozen, perhaps, premier venues in the world. And of course, Waikiki was one of those. When you thought about tourism, when you thought about Hawaii, you thought about Waikiki. You thought about Hawaii Calls. That's how I first heard about Hawaii. All the way in the East Coast in Buffalo, New York, Hawaii Calls. Huddled down in my little bedroom in Buffalo, listening to Hawaii Calls, listening to that shore break, the waves coming in. From the beach at Waikiki, Hawaii Calls. And Hawaii has called to the world since then. And the foundation for those who have made that happen, the people who have been at the very heart of being able to answer the call that came from Hawaii, had as their capacity for learning about how to make that provision, to make that happiness, to take that exotic idea that people like myself and all over the world had about Hawaii, that put a smile on their face just to hear the word. It was people like Henry Kaiser who understood that a presentation could be made of the culture of Hawaii. What is it, after all, that characterizes paradise? Why is it that people respond, as they do, to the very word Hawaii? Why is it those who have traveled the world over, and when people find out you're from Hawaii, it immediately puts a smile on their face? And the question that they ask right after, what are you doing here? What could possibly have taken you away from Hawaii? Henry Kaiser understood that. And I see that not only is Kaiser's name here in the celebration of the legacy in tourism, but I noticed last year Alfred Apaka's name there. Again, I don't know, because I can't see right now, any of you out there, but there may be some in the room who saw Alfred Apaka, who heard Alfred Apaka in person. Yes, there you are. Let me tell you something. The scattered applause that you just heard from us survivors that are still here about Alfred Apaka, the reason for that applause is that was magic. That was the magic of Hawaii. Alfred Apaka's voice, Alfred Apaka's presence, was the representation of a culture of welcoming, unprecedented anywhere in the world. There was a legacy carried on. Don Ho's name is here. All right. Again, there was a presentation presentation of self, a presentation of a personality that represented the welcoming attitude known the world over as Hawaii and the Aloha Spirit. This was manifest at the University of Hawaii, and I see among the first recipients Chuck G. I don't know if Chuck is here tonight. If he is, I want to send a big aloha. Because as a student at the University of Hawaii, I remember Chuck very, very well on the faculty saying to all of us there in the university community that we had to join academics with travel and tourism in a way that represented the best of the Aloha Spirit. And that's what the Travel Industry Management School was, became, and is today. Let me tell you, when my wife and I had the opportunity to travel on a congressional delegation in the role that I had on the Resources Committee in the United States House of Representatives, to represent the United States with the International Treaty on endangered species, to see to it that travel and tourism in Africa understood what the role of endangered species was in Africa to build the basic elements of a sustainable industry throughout Africa. We had the opportunity to meet a young man in Zimbabwe, knowledgeable, eager to share the culture of Africa and Zimbabwe with us, and the legacy of what was represented there in Zimbabwe. And I thought, what a parallel all across the world, when people can reach out to one another, not on the basis of the industry of travel and tourism itself, but on the basis of the value of hospitality, of taking the very best values that exemplify the cultural base wherever you are, and say to someone else, welcome to you. No one has a greater capacity to do that than the people of Hawaii, because the Aloha Spirit and what it means in terms of welcoming people from the world over is unparalleled here in Hawaii. And I know that to be true, because when we came back and understood that this young man that we stayed in touch with, who was involved in the travel and tourism industry there in Victoria Falls, the center of travel and tourism, not only in Zimbabwe, but perhaps in all of Africa, with the great falls there in Victoria Falls. When chaos, political chaos, descended in Zimbabwe, we knew that the capacity of this young man to reach out and perhaps be a key element in his nation was in jeopardy. And the TIM school said, here in Hawaii, that's the kind of person that we'd like to have. We were reaching out to the world. TIM was reaching out to the world. The University of Hawaii was reaching out all across the Pacific, Asia, and Africa to say, the TIM and what it represented here of the Aloha Spirit and the hospitality industry here in Hawaii was ready to welcome this young man. He came here, he prepped at Kapilani Community College, was welcomed by the university community, and welcomed most particularly by the Travel Industry Management School. He graduated with honors from TIM on a Saturday night, and Monday morning he had a job down here at Waikiki because the hospitality industry, travel and tourism, was ready to take anybody who understands what travel, tourism, and hospitality is all about and give him a chance. That's what TIM is all about. That's what the hospitality industry is all about here in Hawaii. The hospitality industry, travel and tourism, anybody who wants to make that contribution is welcome. There's no gender bias, there's no age bias, there's no racial bias, there's no culture bias. You can enter the hospitality industry. I know I did. I know I supported myself over Chuck's Steakhouse. I know You could drink. And everywhere you went, you knew that you had a brother or you had a sister. You knew you could pay your way. You knew that you had a foundation to see you through school, as travel and tourism did for me at the University of Hawaii. And as they did for this young man who had that job right down here in Waikiki when he graduated, when he got his chance. And so I'm particularly pleased tonight to be able to share with you a little of my enthusiasm for what Travel Industry Management School is all about, and to thank you for your recognition of it tonight, and to let you know that this is not just a pro forma evening. Far from it. If you haven't met someone here tonight, reach out and say hello to them. Show a little of that Aloha Spirit. If you're sitting with somebody that you already know, well, that's terrific. But the main thing for us to remember tonight, as we honor this and celebrate this legacy in tourism, is that tourism, travel, and hospitality makes brothers and sisters of us all. And that the key, the heart, was, is, and always will be Hawaii. Aloha. Thank you very much.